Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates. Hello everyone and welcome to the discussion on the Sunday edition of the Hindu newspaper and the Indian Express Explained section. Articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express week 3rd of the September have been taken up and are listed on your screen. The timestamping for these articles is already given in the description box, so let us begin with the first article itself. This article got published on 12th of September 2021 in Sunday edition of the Hindu newspaper. This article actually talks about the recent initiative of the Union government which has allowed the extension of production linked incentive scheme for the textile industry. And in this manner, government is planning to spend over 10,000 crore rupees for the same. This scheme will be extended to the man-made fibers as well as the technical textiles. The relevance of this article definitely comes from your General Studies paper 3, in which we have mobilization of the resources and the technological mission. So as far as this discussion is concerned, we will look into the significance of the textile industry to the Indian economy, which is also relevant for your General Studies paper 1 under the heading of Geography. We will also look into what is PLI scheme for the textile industry and with special focus on technical textile. We will also look into on why we are focusing on the man-made fibers. So let's get started. The significance of the textile industry, well, you can use all these points for your mains answer writing in your General Studies paper 1 and 3. These data facts can help you to frame a good introduction in your answer. The significance of the textile industry to Indian economy comes from the fact that it is the second largest employer after agriculture. We all know that agriculture in India employs around 50% of the people either directly or indirectly. So the second share goes to the textile industry. It also provides employment to nearly 45 million people or 4.5 crore people. It also contributes to the 4% of India's GDP, which is very high. It also provides for 1/3 of the production earning and 12% of foreign exchange earnings. And when it comes to the women empowerment, well, 70% of the workforce is from the women's side. It also provides impetus for the inclusive growth as most of the textile units are coming from the MSME sector, which is now looking for more help from the government side. Well, the location and expansion of textile industry is based on availability of your natural fibers including cotton, silk, wool, jute and others. Also your man-made fibers like rayon, nylon and polyester. As far as technical textiles are concerned, well, they are the engineered products and made up of natural as well as man-made fibers and have different properties than the normal aesthetic textile. Well, when we talk about the conventional textiles, it simply means they are mostly manufactured in the natural process and they are used for aesthetic purposes. On the other hand, technical textiles are used by both natural and the man-made fibers, as well as they are used for mostly the technical purposes. For instance, the construction purposes, agricultural purposes and others. When it comes to the PLI scheme for the textile industry, well, this scheme will be eligible for both man-made as well as the natural fiber for the textiles. This scheme will actually directly promote those industries which were involved in the man-made as well as the technological textiles. Government will provide investment for plant, machinery, equipments as well as the civil work, and they will provide incentive based on the returns which are earned by a particular company. So the more return earned by a particular company, more will be the investment. Now as you can see on your screen, we have the following examples of technical textile. Agrotech means agriculture, build tech means infrastructure, we have cloth tax, we have geotax, home tax, Indu tax, meditax here simply means medicines and many others. So in order to identify the wrong one out, you can easily find it from this tech word which is acting as a suffix. Given all these important forms of technical textiles, now let us look into why we are emphasizing on the man-made fibers. The first foremost reason is that we are going with the scarcity of cotton. Well, India, despite being having the largest area under cotton cultivation, is the second largest cotton producer. Well, this data may change with time and space, but as of now, it is behind China with a little margin. After the partition, we all know that long staple crop growing area went to Pakistan. And because of that, despite all the efforts, we could not improve the India's quality of cotton. And after the introduction of BT cotton, we could achieve larger production, but the quality has remained more or less the same. Similarly, we have increasing export sector in India. What we have seen, the textile exports have remained largely stagnant over the last 7 years because India's textile export is somehow limited to the obsolete technology and quality. The share of man-made fiber-based textile products out of the total exports is just 1/3 in India against 80% in China. So India is exporting just 33% of the textile as technical textile. However, China is exporting around 80%. So man-made fiber-based textile can be promoted in order to improve the exports. The another thing is that through the man-made textiles, India can also regain its dominant status in the global textile trade. It simply means that in the recent year, countries like Bangladesh and Vietnam have gained a sizable share in the man-made fiber segment of the global trade, and man-made textile products are becoming uncompetitive for India in the global stage. So in order to achieve the target of global trade capture, India have to focus more on the man-made fibers. When it comes to the basic benefit of this PLI scheme to the textile industry, well, it will lead to the fresh investment. More than 19,000 crore could be infused in the textile sector and a turnover up to 3 lakh crore can be achieved. It will also create additional employment opportunities for more than 7.5 lakh people in India. And lastly, as the textile industry predominantly employs the women from the rural sector, the scheme will empower women and increase their participation in the formal economy. Given all these potential benefits, government has recently launched an important scheme with the name Mega Investment Textile Park. Now, mega here simply means a large area where important industrial unit covering the textile sector will be established along with your infrastructure such as roads, electricity, water supply and every other possible thing. It will also have connectivity with the important centers through railways, roadways and in fact airways. The government in its recent budget has proposed Mitra scheme to make India's textile industry as globally competitive, attract investment and boost employment. It will be based on plug and play philosophy. It simply means that if you want to establish an industry, you will have land, water, road, electricity, everything available at your doorstep. Go over there, invest and start your factory in an instant manner. Government is planning to establish 7 mega textile parks across India over 3 years. And these parks will be established based on the parameters. For instance, the cotton-based textile parks will be established in and around Maharashtra, Gujarat and Tamil Nadu. And similarly, the textile based on the woolen sector or textile based on the woolen cloth will be established in the northern part of India. Given this discussion in place, let us now move to the question attached to this article. So read this question carefully and answer in the comment box. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article got published in the Indian Express Explained section and talks about the recent momentum of consumer demand in India. Well, as far as India's consumer demand is concerned, past COVID-19 crisis and the lockdown situation is going downward. This downward trend has started right after 2016 and has deepened to a greater extent. Context of this article says that the falling consumer demand has led to the economic slowdown in India and could hurt the long-term growth potential of the country. Now, as far as this article is concerned, it is important for your General Studies paper 3, where we deal with all the issues related to the Indian economy with special focus to the growth and development. And consumer demand is very important part of your growth, especially with respect to GDP parameters. As far as content of this article is concerned, we'll be dealing up with the basics of the GDP through the consumer demand lens. We will also look into the consumer demand trend in the past decade and of course the government response in order to boost the consumer demand in the country. So let's get started with the first one. If you have studied about the Indian GDP and the basic parameters and measurements of the GDP from your 12th NCERT macroeconomics, you will be well aware that there is a method with the name expenditure method in which the GDP could be calculated with a simple formula where C plus I plus G plus X minus M is the entire composition of the GDP. Now, let us break up this formula into different parts. The C here denotes the consumer expenditure or the consumer demand. This consumer demand can easily be seen with the private household expenditure, also known as PFCE. As per India and many other developing countries, consumer demand holds more than 50% of the GDP composition. And because of this, in developing countries, composition of higher consumer demand defines the pathway of growth. Lower the consumer demand definitely depicts that the GDP, which is on the downward trend, is going to be on the same trend in the future. Hence, it is the responsibility of the government to look into this matter and promote the consumption in the country. As far as I is concerned, I denotes the investment or the capital formation in the country. I in this formula, I in this diagram is represented by the business investment, also known as gross capital formation in the country. This I actually is around 28 to 30% in the current economic scenario. Way back in 2006 to 8, it was around 35 to 36%. And higher investment means higher GDP growth, and that was one of the reasons why during 2006 to 8 India registered a growth rate of around 9%. Apart from these two components, G stands for government expenditure. Whenever the above two topics does not fit into to provide impetus to the economy, government steps in. And through their expenditure, they try to push up the demand and supply in the economy and ultimately try to push up the economic growth. The last component, known as X minus M, is also known by the name next exports. India is a developing country having low share of export potential. Hence, India's given the demand, imports are very high. And given this higher ratio of the imports, India normally have negative balance of trade. This negative balance of trade actually goes against the higher GDP growth. So, the focus of this article is going to be the consumer demand and its trend. As far as prelim examination is concerned, UPSC has been very proactive in asking questions related to a particular variable and its trend in the last 5 or 10 years. So, this discussion becomes extremely important for us. Given this diagram, which was also mentioned in the article, we can come across the trend of consumer demand in the country. Well, consumer demand in this case actually deals with the normal consumption which you, me, and many other people do on their daily basis. It includes your fuel expenditure. It also includes many other small and large spendings which we do on daily, monthly, and yearly basis. This consumption is also responsible for boosting the industrial, agricultural, and service sector demand across the nation. And because of this, what we observe is the higher demand also support the higher supply and ultimately boost up the combined annual growth rate in the country. As far as 2005 to 7, these 6 years is concerned, the consumption demand was increasing with 8.2%. But this was the period of boom. If you have read or studied about the economic cycle or the business cycle, you will find that in a long run, the growth rate of an economy is at average position. However, there are certain periods when the economy goes into the higher position than the average one, and there are certain other period when it goes to the lower one. But these two periods are not important for an GDP or for the policy makers. For them, the average is more important than any other thing. In a period of 2005 to 11, India's economy was at boom stage. In 2008 to 12, it went into mild recession position. And after the COVID lockdown, we are going through the same slowdown or the mild recession. As you can see from this last histogram, that between the period of 2017 to 22, India's consumption demand actually increased by only 3.2%. And as we have discussed previously, lower the consumption demand, lower will be the supply from industry, agriculture and service sector. So if people are not going to the market and buying product, it will definitely hamper the seller, wholesaler, distributor, transporter, manufacturer and ultimately the consumer themselves who are involved in the production process as a labor. Hence, in order to boost the economy, let us see what government has done recently. Because of the COVID-19 crisis and a sudden lockdown, Indian economy went into the mild recession and registered the negative growth rate for 2 quarters. And because of this, government came up with the following provisions. They provided Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana in order to provide free food items such as rice, wheat, pulses to about 80 crore people who are directly associated with National Food Security Act. Along with this, they have also increased not only the wages under MG Narega but also the duration of work provided to the poor people. They have also provided 500 rupees per month to the poor women who had Jan Dhan account as their financial inclusion measure. When it comes to the industrial sector, as we know, MSME sector is the most vulnerable one in terms of economic crisis. In order to fight this, they have provided about 50,000 infusion in equities of MSME through fund of funds scheme. They have also provided large amount of collateral free funds. Well, if you do not know collateral free, just assume that whenever you try to get a loan from a bank will ask you for any kind of mortgage commodity. If you are looking for a home loan, they will ask for the legal deeds or papers, and you have to submit that paper in order to avail the loan. So that paper will act as a collateral. But in this case, they have provided loans without any collateral. They've also revised the MSME definition in order to bring more flexibility and better categorization to avail credit from the market. In 2021 budget, they have hiked the capital expenditure to the historic level of 34.5%. And this will definitely boost the infrastructure sector and ultimately the demand in the economy through multiplier effect. They have also provided a relaxation in the borrowing limits for the state government because many of the state government were going through the severe lockdown and industrial setup along with the demand was totally shut down. In order to support these states, central government has provided the relaxed borrowing limits. They've also extended the PLI scheme to 10 more sectors in order to boost the industrial demand. When industrial demand boosts, they also boost the supply from the industrial sector and ultimately generates the employment. Higher employment, according to John Maynard Keynes, will definitely increase the aggregate demand or the total demand in the economy. Assume this, if there are 10 people who are unemployed, they have no demand. But if they are employed and earning 100 rupees per day, that means they now have a capacity of 10,000. This 10,000 can be used in order to create demand in the economy. So in simple terms, employment creates demand. And this relationship is used by the government in order to boost the demand in the economy through PLI scheme. And lastly, they came up with the national monetization plan in order to provide boost to the idle assets which were there with the government, and also to monetize the existing assets in order to create the demand. Given this discussion in place, let us now look into the important question attached to this article. So read this question carefully and answer in the comment box. With this, now let us move to the next article for the day. This article got published in the Indian Express Explained section and talks about the recent denial by Indian farmers in order to avail the MSP which was forwarded by the central government. So, the relevance of this article comes from the fact that MSP is one of the most sought after topic of UPSC, not only for the preliminary examination but also for the mains. The context of the article says that the Union Cabinet, which is also responsible for the formation and the rolling out of the MSP in India, has increased the MSP for Rabi crops. Well, Rabi is a season which starts from the October and goes all the way to March. Important Rabi crops include your wheat, mustard, and many others. However, the farmers and the farmer lobby has rejected this enhancement in the MSP. Now let us see why. The context of the article simply says that we will be going to read about the MSPs, which is important for your prelim examination. So take this as a revision. We will also look into the components of the MSP and how it is calculated in India, and we will also look into those issues which were highlighted by this article. As far as declaration is concerned, government has increased the MSP on wheat by 2.03%, and the second important crop is your mustard, in which it was increased by 8.6%. As far as barley, gram and safflower is concerned, it was under 3% of increase. The real issue which was raised by the farmer lobby is that if every section in the society is getting benefit over and above the inflation rate, why not farmers? Now let us understand this in simpler manner. Let us say there is a person, Mr. A, and he is working in a government service. His salary is coming at the right time. He is entitled to all the pay commission recommendation, and his daily allowance is subjected to the inflation in the economy. So if he is getting a raise of 8% on his salary on the annual basis, it means that it is above the inflationary rate of 6%. This helped Mr. A to keep his livelihood over and above the basic necessities. But when it comes to the farmer, it is not the case. The inflation rate is 6%, however, the farmer is getting a raise of only 2% or 3% at max. As we know, wheat and rice are the staple crop of India, and large number of population is dependent both in cropping and consuming the wheat and rice. And if these crops are subjected to just 2 to 3% of the annual increase in the MSP, it is not going to benefit the farmer, who is on the other side is acting as a consumer and consuming the goods at 6%. And this is one of the reasons why farmers have come up in a group and rejected the proposal by the central government. So let us look into the relevance of this topic further. Minimum support price has remained a very important topic for UPSC, and time and again they have asked questions from this topic in the prelim examination. In 2017, they asked about the economic cost attached to the MSP, and in 2018, they simply asked about the important crops and their announcement by CECA as far as MSP is concerned. So given this important, MSP is definitely going to be a part of our today's discussion. Well, let us see what it is. Minimum support price or MSP is a form of market intervention by the government of India, not the state government. So this is your first fact. Why it is taken? It is taken to ensure agriculture producer against any sharp fall in prices of farm produce. Let us assume this. The current price of, let's say, wheat is 100 rupees per kg. But let's say 2 years down the line, the price falls to 50 rupees per kg. But it is not the only product which is consumed by the farmer. Farmer is also responsible for buying other product. Let's say he is going to plan a wedding for his or her daughter. In that case, they require more money. but the returns which they are getting on their crop is now on the downward trend. And in order to prevent farmer from this kind of distress selling of their produce, what government has done, they have provided security in terms of minimum support price, in which the farmer will get at least a basic income, let's say 80 or 90 rupees per kg from the government, and this will be assured through the government orders. And this is something which has prevented farmers going into the distress sale. The objective is simple: to support farmer from the distress sale and also procure food grains for the public distribution, as we have seen in the case of National Food Security Act, where PDS shops are used to provide food grains to the poor people. It also provides inducement to the farmer to make capital investment. It is a simple thing. See, if farmer is selling at 100 rupees per kg and his cost of production was, let's say, 50 rupees per kg, so his net saving is 50 rupees per kg as a whole. This 50 rupees, out of this 50 rupees, he can consume, let's say, 40 rupees for his day-to-day and monthly expenditure, and rest 10 rupees can be spent on the investment creation or the capital creation. Let's say for buying seeds, let's say for buying fertilizers, for other important inputs in the agriculture. So higher this value is, higher will be the production in the agriculture. Hence, this is also one of the objective of MSP. The announcement of the objective is made by the Government of India based on the recommendation of Commission of Agriculture Cost and Prices. There are as of now 24 notified crops, including your sugar cane. Hence, it is important for you to remember all these important crops in the correct order. But in the future, this ratio may increase or decrease. So it is your responsibility to keep yourself notified and updated as far as MSP crops are concerned. It includes your cereals, pulses, oilseeds, copra, raw cotton, raw jute, and of course your Virginia flue-cured tobacco. So if in future UPSC asks that tobacco is not part of your MSP, some student might get confused, but you have to be diligent in order to deal with these kind of questions because it is part of your MSP. When we come to the component of how MSP of a particular good is derived, let's say as of now government is saying that they will buy rice at 2100 rupees per 100 kg. Now how and why they have arrived to 2100 rupees as a price parameter? This 2100 is based on the following parameters. It includes your cost of production to the farmer, demand and supply mechanism in the market, the current price trend available in the market, both national and international. It also includes the inter-crop price parity. Let's say there's a farmer who is growing wheat and mustard in the same crop. On the other hand, there's a farmer who is growing wheat along with core cereals like bajra, ragi and others. So the price parity between both these crops would be different. Similarly, they will also look into terms of trade between agriculture and non-agriculture. So for those students who do not know what is terms of trade, it simply means what farmer is paying in order to get what he desires. Let's say a farmer is paying 100 rupees for a commodity X and a farmer is paying 80 rupees to sell his commodity Y. In this case, he is paying more to get less. But let's say the farmer is getting 180 rupees for his rice and he's paying just 80 rupees for the wheat from the market. In this case, his exchange ratio is better. He's saving 80 rupees. So in this case, the terms of trade for farmer is very favorable. So whenever you read this topic in your books, textbooks or current affairs, you should be aware of that. The minimum of 50% as a margin over the cost of production. So let's say the cost of production of rice in 1 hectare of land is around 10,000 rupees. So what government will do, they will keep 50% plus as a margin in order to provide better returns to the farmers over and above the cost of production. And lastly, what could be the outcome of higher MSP on consumers? Because see, government is not only focusing on the farmer as a entity, they're also focusing on the impact of higher MSP on the prices paid by the poor. Because see, if farmer is getting 2100 rupees for their product, it also means that the consumer will be paying 2100 rupees for their consumption. And if this 2100 rupees is not suitable for the poor section of the society, government will go into introspection and will reduce the MSP. So all these criteria is taken up in order to provide or in order to arrive to a particular price under the MSP. Let us now look into what method is used by the government in order to conclude or in order to arrive to a particular MSP price. Well, as of now, there are two methods. One is practice and the other one is recommended. The first, which is practiced, is your A2 plus FL method. Well, what does this mean? It means that it will cover all the payout costs directly incurred by the farmer, which includes expenditure on seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, labor, land, fuel, irrigation and others. It simply means A2 is your basic cost. FL actually includes your family labor, where F stands for family and L stands for labor. Now, for those who are finding it to be confusing, let me clear it out. Well, you all know that let's say there are 6 members in a family, and out of these 6 members, let's say 4 are adults who are adult enough to work on a field. When these 4 people are working on the agriculture field, it means the farmer is now getting benefit of not hiring the other 3 members from outside their family. So it means these 3 other members apart from the farmer are acting as a labor, but they are not getting any wages, they are not getting any payment, but this should be part of wage calculation. Because if farmer was supposed to hire the 3 laborers from outside, he would be paying some amount to them. But in this case, he is not, because his family members are working on the same field, as this is also part of your inclusion. On the other hand, C2 is a more comprehensive cost because it includes the factors in rentals, interest foregone on the own land and fixed capital asset on the top of A2FL. So here C2 simply means A2 plus FL, which we have already discussed, plus the interest which you are foregone because you are not taking any loan, plus the rent you are foregone because you are working on your own field, and plus the capital assets which you are utilizing. Let's say you have your own tractors and you are not going for, or you are not buying, or you are not hiring a tractor from outside. So when you are using your own fixed capital assets, they should also act like an investment and should be included in your cost. Well, government as of now is using A2FL, which is the first method, but farmers have been demanding to utilize C2 method as a better one to arrive at higher MSP. Well, this method was also suggested and recommended by MS Swaminathan committee in order to boost the MSP in the Indian agricultural market. Now let us come to a conclusion that why MSP in India is a flawed regime. What are the issues which are existing, plaguing right now when it comes to the MSP regime? Well, according to the farmer lobby and farmer agencies and many other economic and agricultural economists, MSP actually distorts the market. Why? Because market works on the principle of demand equals supply. When supply exceeds, demand also exceeds. But in some case, excess supply does not matches the demand. The demand is of 80 units, but the supply is of, let's say, 180 units. The excess of 100 is lying idle as a stock. With farmers or any other agencies. So when there is excess supply in the market, price should go down. But MSP does not allow the prices to go down. And this is one of the important points why India's agriculture commodities are very, very uncompetitive in the global market. How? Well, in global market, the prices of food commodity is much lower because of the developed nations' interference. The developed nations are selling their agricultural produce through the subsidizing process. They subsidize their produce and sell in the lower prices. On the other hand, India's MSP region does not allow the prices to go down below the global market. Hence, farmers are unable to sell their produce in the international market. The second issue is that MSP is now more becoming as a right. Farmers are looking towards the government as a first option, and even the government is also acting as a parallel market for the farmers to sell their produce. However, it should have been a mechanism where if a farmer cannot sell something in the open market, they should have approached to the government to sell it. But the policy of open door, where a farmer at any point of time can arrive to the FCI godowns and can sell their produce, has actually made MSP more like a right available to the farmer. The another issue is that MSP, where the pricing is being calculated, is more like a future promise. Because see, the government has already announced the MSP for the upcoming season despite getting into the data of actual cropping pattern. What may be the future of the Rabi crop is still unknown. We do not know what is going to be the actual output of wheat in 2022, but yet the prices are being promised. The another issue is that MSP procurement is both limited in terms of your crops, because as we have seen, only 22 to 23 crops are included. Apart from that, it is also geographically very limited, because as far as northeastern states are concerned, the procurement under MSP is as less as 1 to 3%. On the other hand, states like Punjab and Haryana, which are now standing against the central government for the farm laws, have procurement as high as 90 to 95%. This discrimination is also responsible for creating the market distortions. Given this discussion in place, let us now look into the important question attached to this article. So solve this question and comment your answer in the comment box. With this, now we will move into the next article for the day. Now we come to the last article for Indian Express this week. This article got published with relation to the Battle of Saragarhi. Now, from the perspective of Indian history, we'll be reading this article in very brief manner. It is one of the finest last standing military battle in the history of the world. Why? Because 21 soldiers were fighting against the 8,000 Afridi and Orakzai tribal people and could hold the fort for 7 hours from the fierce attack of the tribal people. Well, when it comes to the basic information, Saragarhi was a communication tower between Fort Lockhart and Fort Gulistan for British Indian government. These forts were actually acting as a guard for the northwest frontier province, which is now in Pakistan as a state. And these forts were actually built by Maharaja Ranjit Singh of Punjab. These forts were later named by the British government, and this communication tower of Saragarhi acted as a link between two important forts and was providing shelters to the important military personnel and acted as an important strategic location. So as far as in-depth study is concerned, it will not be required. So UPSC may ask questions on why and where this battle of Saragarhi was fought and what was the basic consequence. Beyond that, it is not required to go into the detail, as this is not associated with the Indian national freedom struggle. With this article in place, now we come to the conclusion of today's discussion. Thank you.